Hi guys, it's Linda from Waken Meal. And on this week's meal on a budget, we're actually going to be doing two meals because I went on the Flip app and Alan had requested a tofu dish. So I priced out the tofu and the blocks, 454-gram blocks, were $3.49, but I was able to find this tofu, which is 750 grams, and it was on for $2.99. So I'm like, okay, that's two meals. So I ended up spending $21.32 for the ingredients for the two dishes that I'm going to be making. I'm going to be doing a quick Indian Goan dish for Alan with some chickpeas, and I'm also doing a tofu stir fry with a pad thai sauce with some thin Shanghai noodles. So join me and I'll show you the ingredients, how we put it together. $21.32. It's going to be two full meals, but it'll end up being more than that because I'm going to dish it out and put it in the freezer for later on. So come along.
So as you can see here, our sauces were the most expensive items, but our total was $21.32, and we have enough for 4 full meals. So that's not a bad price. So I have drained the tofu blocks off. I've drained all the liquid, and now we've got it on a paper towel lined plate. We are going to pat the tofu blocks dry, get as much moisture out as we possibly can. It'll help us to crisp up the tofu to make it not as mushy when we put it into our stir fry and into the goan dish. So we're going to dry those off, place the blocks onto our plate so that we're able to slice them up and get those positioned, and then grab a knife. We're going to slice each block into quarters in one direction. We'll work on the other block and get that sliced as well, sliced in half and then into quarters. We're going to slice into quarters or thirds the other direction, so we end up with little sticks. Do that for both sides. Then we will flip it onto its side, and then we will be able to cut this into half. We'll do the additional block as well. And then you will be able to see the 1 to 1.5 inch cubes that we have generated. That'll be a nice surface area to crisp up in the pan. Because we sliced the tofu up, we have released a little bit of extra moisture. So we're going to take the extra paper towel that we have there, and we are going to use that to pat things a little bit drier. Again, we want all that moisture off without having to add any cornstarch or flour to the tofu when we are frying it in the oil. The hotter the oil, the faster it will crisp up, and we won't need the need for that cornstarch or flour. So I'm going to set that aside. We are going to turn the pan up to a high heat, because stir fry is always best in a high heat. Grab our avocado oil because it has a hotter boiling point. Can withstand the heat of a stir fry a little bit better. So while that oil heats up, we are going to slice up the onion. Because we are using the onion in both the Indian as well as the Chinese dish, we are going to just leave these in larger chunks. I've also drained the can of chickpeas and the water chestnuts, so it's just a matter of getting these items prepped while we wait for the oil to heat up so we can put the tofu in and get those cooked up. So we're just going to save time by getting the onions here chopped up. And again, I like larger pieces, so larger than the chickpeas themselves would be, and allows a little bit of a crispier texture within the stir fry. So we're going to keep getting all of this chopped up. And once we have that done, we're going to set the onion aside because that will come in once we have all of our tofu prepped and ready to go. So that's the piece that we're looking for there. So we're going to set those off to the side and get that ready for later. Get things a little bit more organized and tidied up here. Our water is getting ready to go for the Shanghai noodles in the left pot. Checking the oil temperature in our stir fry. So the oil is ready. We're just doing a double check of the tofu to make sure that it's all nice and dried off. Get all that extra oil extra moisture off. And you can see in the video that it is actually starting to sizzle. So that's going to make sure that we get that nice crispy texture on our tofu, because you want it to be nice and browned and to hold up to putting it into the stir fry or into that vindaloo sauce that we have for that gohan. So we do want to do this in smaller batches. So 8, 9, 10 pieces probably would be the best option, just so that we have space in the pan for it to crisp up. We'll do a batch here, and then we will continue on, get the rest of that tofu done. And then we are on our last batch of tofu, but the water has come to a boil in the other pot. So we're just going to toss in our thin Shanghai noodles to get those going. 5 minutes in those noodles, and that will be ready. So we did have a small problem with my camera. So this is the tofu that I've pulled out. I did end up adding all of our onions to our wok, and I fried them all up together with a little bit of salt and pepper. And the chickpeas, I then split half the onions and half the chickpeas into that pot in the back corner. I then put the water chestnuts into our wok, because the water chestnuts are for our stir fry. That pot in the back corner is for that go-in dish for Alan. So we have some salt and pepper, the water chestnuts, and chickpeas in the front pan, just the onions and chickpeas in the back for the go-in dish. Adding the chickpeas along with the tofu just gives you an additional dose of protein. So for the stir fry, I am adding ginger and garlic. If you don't have it, you don't need to add it in. I just always have those two ingredients in my fridge. You can get them at the dollar store or the grocery store. I like to put a lot of extra garlic into my stir fry, and then just a little bit of ginger. It just adds a little bit of extra seasoning. Although the BH pad thai sauce that we added to this recipe has a lot of the seasonings in it, so it's not necessary, but it's something I like to do when I am making a stir fry, if I have it at the house. If you don't, again, you don't need it. Just adds that little bit of extra flavor to whatever you're cooking. So we're going to be cooking this at a high temperature, so you want to be moving it regularly because you don't want it to burn, but you do want those little brown bits because we know that the brown is where a lot of that flavor comes in. So I'm just putting those garlic and ginger away now. But we're going to come back and stir this up. Got the different spoon for the Indian. Again, we're making sure that the onions and chickpeas are cooking, but they're not going to burn. We're going to get that vindaloo sauce. So this is the sauce that we're making for Alan. Again, it's a 3 chili rating, which is way too hot for me, but it's something that he enjoys. So we're going to put that into the pot. It does say add pork, but as you know, you can add any type of protein. It is just meant to be a pork dish, but we're using tofu. You could do a seafood. And I can tell you right now that that smelt spicy. It is a little bit red, but it definitely had the heat to it. Alan enjoyed it after he ate this, so it was what he needed. So we've got that stirred up, and we're going to put in half of the tofu into that dish. So then that way it can simmer. We're going to get that added in. We're going to stir this up, get it nice and mixed up, get coated with all of that sauce so it's nice and flavorful. We don't want to use a lot of pressure because we don't want to crush the tofu that we worked so hard to crisp up. But I can tell you, it smelt wonderful. I really wish I still liked heat, but Alan told me it was good. So we've got that stirred up. We're going to go and see if we can locate the lid for it. And we'll put the lid on and let that simmer while we finish the stir fry. So we're stir frying the veg. You can see there's some brown bits on the onions and the chickpeas. So that is getting ready to go. We're going to take our snow peas and add those in. Again, it's not a necessary ingredient, or if you had frozen peas in the fridge, things like that. But I just like having some snow peas. Stirred that up. I'm going to add the tofu. and get that mixed in just so it's incorporated in so you don't just have a pile of peas and a pile of chickpeas and things like that. So we're just going to give it a nice stir. And once it is all stirred up and mixed together, then we're going to grab the pad thai sauce. Again, buying the bottled sauces is not ideal, but it is a cheaper option because all of the flavorings and seasonings that you'd have to buy individually are already in the bottle. So you've got your turmeric and you've got your chilies and things like that. So it's a good budget-friendly way to get flavor in. And VH has a lot of different options. So if you want a sweet and sour or you want a garlic chili, something like that. So we're just going to finish stirring this up, make sure everything is well incorporated. The flavor was amazing. It smelled good, and I so wanted it for dinner, but it wasn't quite that time yet. So we're just going to give it a couple extra little tosses here. Make sure the sauce is heated through. And then we'll be able to plate this and our goan up. And I will show you that in a moment of what that looks like once it's all ready to go. And it ended up being more than just the 2 meals for the 21.32. It's all fresh, it's all tasty, and it's all inexpensive. So this is the stir fry with the noodles, the Indian goan, and the 4 stir-fried dishes, as well as the big pot of goan, which ended up being about 3 meals. So we had 7 meals for $21.32.